November 1st, 7 p.m. Please rise for the pledge.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call.
Councilmember Bachmann.
Here.
Mayor Beaton.
Here.
Councilmember Lundberg.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Sullivan.
Here.
Councilmember Szymanski.
Here.
Councilmember Grabowski.
Here.
Councilmember Martin Pontiac. Here. City Manager.
Here.
City Attorney.
Here.
Police Chief.
Here.
Fire Chief.
Here.
Roll call complete.
Thank you. Public hearings, we have none. This is a time for citizen comments on agenda-related items. This is an opportunity for citizens to comment on agenda-related items only. Citizens in attendance shall be recognized by the mayor for comments limited to 5 minutes. Letters submitted to council will not be publicly read. Is there anybody who would like to come forward? Seeing none, consent agenda. All agenda items marked with an asterisk are on the consent agenda and considered by the city manager to be routine matters. Prior to the approval of the consent agenda, any member of council may have an item from the consent agenda removed and taken up during the regular portion of the meeting. Consent agenda items include approval of minutes, cash balances, revenue and expenses, notification regarding next study session. At this time, council could take action to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll make a motion. Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Bachmann.
Yes.
Mayor Beaton.
Yes.
Councilmember Lundberg.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Sullivan.
Yes.
Councilmember Szymanski.
Yes.
Councilmember Grabowski.
Yes.
Councilmember Martin Pontiac.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. We have no unfinished business. New business. Consideration of updating City Council Policy CP20, FOIA, Procedures and Guidelines. In December of 2018, the state of Michigan passed 2 amendments to the Freedom of Information Act. The updates to the City Council Policy CP20 would reflect these amendments. In addition to the amendment updates, clarifying language has been added to Section 5, Calculation of Fees, and Section 6, Waiver of Fees. At this time, council could take action to approve the updates to the City Council Policy CP20, FOIA Procedures and Guidelines.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, this is based on that 2018 law, which was kind of a response to an Emily FOIA for all election documents from clerks for ballots. The 2 changes they made were were requiring an address for, so you have to have a name, contact information unless they're indigent, and then also having a good faith estimate provided if it's going to be over $50 or deemed like an unreasonable amount of time. So we kind of spell out those items. If it's deemed to be over 50, what's going to happen is just they're notified of the amount, and then 50% is due within 45 days. And they have 3 days to appeal, and then would continue on if they paid that 50%, and then they pay the remainder when they receive their documents. We also updated a few things.
Can I just ask you?
Sure.
This is in line with the state guidelines?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
So yeah, we reviewed it with the city attorney, police department, Kelly from my office, and then the other item we updated was some practices that the police department does, which is providing information on to victims of a crime, like police reports, and then accident reports are also typically included. So added that to the policy.
Okay, great. Okay. Any questions?
Mr. Gamble, was there a fee for FOIA prior to this? And if so, what's the difference between now and then?
There is a fee, and typically they're notified of the approximate amount. But this is kind of allows for if a person kind of puts forth kind of a large request, it allows for there to be a need for a deposit, 50% deposit before we continue on. So this kind of doesn't have it in limbo about should the city fulfill just a very large, unreasonable request. without.
Taken if a person doesn't have much money, indigent
Yeah.
or anything?
Yeah, there are some indigent, yeah, there's some exemptions for that.
Good question. Anybody else? I think we're ready for roll call.
Councilmember Martin Pontiac.
Yes.
Councilmember Grabowski.
Yes.
Councilmember Szymanski.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Sullivan.
Yes.
Councilmember Lundberg.
Yes.
Mayor Beaton.
Yes,
Councilmember Bachmann.
Yes.
Motion approved.
thank you. Moving on to notices, communications, and announcements. A report from Munson Healthcare Manistee Hospital. A regular part of each council meeting is a report from a cooperating agency, organization, or department. At this time, Ms. Kelly Thomasewski
Pretty good.
pretty good,
Yeah.
will report on the activities of Munson Healthcare Manistee Hospital and respond to any questions the council may have regarding their activities. No action is required on this. Go, take it away.
All right. If it's okay, I'm going to stand like this so I can see everybody. I'm going back to everybody. I am Kelly Tomaszewski. I'm the interim president at Munson Healthcare Manistee Hospital. Been with the hospital over 8 years. My husband was born and raised in Manistee, and we've lived here full-time for about 8 years, but I've been coming up here for over 40. So very happy to be here tonight in front of all of you and just give you an update on overall operations of the hospital, and then to share some good news about the ED renovation that is coming to a close. So along the way, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate, because I want to make sure we get them answered for you. I thought it would be helpful just to give a general overview of the hospital. This won't take a long time, but you know, our mission, vision, and values are important to us, and it's something that we live every day. We've been part of Munson Healthcare officially for 3 years. That's been a good ad for us because it really strengthens everything that we can offer to our community. We've always worked closely with them, but you know, especially with the pandemic and COVID, things changed a little bit in healthcare. We really were able to not only utilize our resources up in Traverse City, but in Cadillac and Paul Oliver. We really work closely together to make sure that patients get the care that they need. We always want to take care of people close to home, but if that can't happen, we want to work with our partners within the system to make sure that they get the care that they need. So it's really important that we work together to make sure that that quality health care is here for each one of us in this community. We want people to choose Manistee Hospital to get the care that they can get close to home. And we also want to make sure that we show excellence every day, that we work well as a team, and that we take care of our community. And we talk about this all the time with not only new employees, but employees throughout the hospital. We live in a small community. And when you live in a small community and you're the hospital in that community, you take care of each other, meaning you take care of your friends, your neighbors, your family, or somebody that you know, you're taking care of their friends, family, or neighbors. And so we take that to heart. It's really important to us that we take excellent care of each one of our patients. And if we don't, we want to hear about it, because we want people to feel very well taken care of here close to home. As you might know, we're a 45-bed hospital. We don't necessarily staff to 45 beds, but we are capable of going up to 45 beds. We usually staff around 20 to 25 currently, and it's been that way for a long time. We do offer 24-hour emergency care. We have over 350 employees. That's a lot of families here in the Manistee area, so that's important work for us. We have a lot of special medical staff that either are here full-time or they come on site from locations, and we'll get into that in a little bit. We go back to 1889, but the current facility where it's located was started in 1970. And we've been part of Munson Healthcare, as I said, for quite a bit. We offer many services. Obviously, when you're a small rural hospital, you don't offer every service because that's not possible, but we want to make sure that we offer the services that's important for our community to have here, and then we also partner with other facilities within the Munson Healthcare system to make sure that we're giving patients the care they need. As you know, we have an inpatient unit, so if you have to stay overnight with us, we have a place for you. Emergency services. We do have cancer and infusion that has been here for about 8 years, and it's something that was off-site on campus, but now it's been in the hospital for at least 8 years, and it's a sister program of Cadillac Hospital, and that's something that's new for us. We're our own hospital. We're still our own program. We have staff that are local. Our patients come and still see us in Manistee, but because of some drug pricing and other things that made sense for us to partner with Cadillac, which he had done anyway, but it's just a little more official. But really, patients won't see a difference. You come in to get an infusion, injection, cancer treatment, any kind of treatment that you would need that we always offer here in Manistee continues to be offered here. So we're so proud of the work that we do here, because when you have cancer, you have other healthcare issues, you're sick. You don't want to have to travel any further than you need to. So we're really proud that we can offer that service here in Manistee. We have the walk-in clinic, of course, lab and radiology services. Surgery is busy. We'll talk about that in a little bit. We do have a sleep disorder center. Sleep apnea is a real thing. People have sleep apnea. They need to get their studies, which we do here, and then they can get the treatment that they need so they get good rest. We have full rehab, physical, occupational, speech therapy, cardio and pulmonary rehabilitation right here on site, diagnostic imaging, which we talked about. We do have specialty services that come here in a different cadence. Traverse Heart and Vascular is one example. They're on site a couple of times a week, and they're busy enough where they're looking maybe to add another day. We have nephrology that comes on site, and we have other specialties that are available here for our folks that live here in Manistee, so again, they don't have to travel to Traverse City or somewhere else to get that care. And we have primary care, OBGYN, urology, general services. I do want to touch on our orthopedics for a minute. As you all know, Dr. Berry, you've probably heard his name before. He's been with us a long time, and we're so thankful that he is. Dr. Mark D'Angelo was a sports medicine specialist that worked closely with the schools. He was here for about 5 years. He's from Manhattan originally, and so he and his wife decided with their young kids they were going to move back to New York, and then COVID hit. What awful timing for him, poor guy. But so things changed for him too there. Then he was in Chicago for a bit. Happy to say that Dr. D'Angelo is back full-time here in Manistee. He's seeing patients here and in Cadillac, so that regional support, but he is here since September. We are so happy to have him back. He's getting busier and busier as we go. So that's a familiar name. And we also have Dr. Will Austin, who specializes in joint revision. So if you've had a joint done and you need a little tweak to it, he's a specialist that's able to provide that care. So orthopedics is doing very well, as many of our services are here in Manistee.
Kelly, would you step a little bit closer to the microphone, please?
I sure
Yeah,
will.
thank you very much. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Kelly, I have one question for you. It's about the Cancer and Infusion Center. Does that include chemo and radiation?
We don't do radiation here. If you need radiation services, that is needed to go to Traverse City. But we do chemo. We do all full source of chemotherapy here right in Manistee.
I just remember when I had cancer, after chemo, I had to go through radiation, and it was every day for 5 days for 6 weeks. So that, I'm just...
Yeah, we don't have the equipment for that piece, unfortunately, and it is a burden. It's a lot for folks. We try to arrange rides, or we provide gas cards so folks don't have to worry about that burden of the price of it, but it is difficult because it is a multi-day for a bit. It is difficult, but maybe someday that would be lovely.
Someday.
That would be lovely.
I would.
Yep.
How about the OB? They don't deliver babies here?
We don't deliver babies anymore here. No, that change happened about 5 years ago. But what we do, and it's if you look up other rural health hospitals, which are small like us, unfortunately that's a trend that's happened before us and certainly after us. It's not something that was easily decided, I will tell you that. But we do is we have pre-OB services here. So if you're pregnant, you can get all of your care here up until when you're going to deliver. And then after you have your baby, you can come here and get all of your care after. And we partner with not only Traverse City, Cadillac, and we partner with Ludington, because we want moms to be able to pick the hospital that they want to go to deliver their baby. We make sure that as they're getting closer to their due date, we partner with those moms and make sure we're talking along the way. But whatever hospital they're going to be delivering at, we make sure that we send all the information to that hospital so they're prepared. And they even can get a tour of that facility if they would like to. And there's a nice handoff between our physician and the physician that's going to be following, or the nurse practitioner or the midwife that's going to be following them. Any other questions so far?
You're gonna stay here through the whole meeting?
Sure.
I'd like to talk to you later.
I would be happy to talk to you. Yep, I'll be here. As I mentioned, we offer other services as well. Cardiology I already talked about. Dental surgery is something that we used to do in small amounts. Dental surgery is something, if you're developmentally disabled or you're a pediatric child, and you know it's hard to get sometimes a good view when you're in the office of what's going on in that mouth for the dentist. So sometimes you need true anesthesia for that. We provide a service that is not offered everywhere in the state. Not every hospital does this because they just don't, and it has to do with payer mix and that kind of thing. We do that service here in Manistee. We have people that travel hours from where they're living to come and get that service here, and we do that surgery at least 4 or 5 times a month. So we're really happy to offer that. It really helps us kind of serve not only our community, but really the greater state of Michigan, which is great. We do ear, nose, and throat surgeries here. Certainly oncology, as we already talked about, we do a lot of eyes with the Reamers. Both Dr. Andrew and Dr. Brandon, his son, is seeing, we see quite a few patients here. And we offer a lot of podiatry services, which we always did, but we've really seen an uptick in the volume for that. So this is what drives us really every day. This is kind of that mission and values that we talked about, but this is kind of our overall true north, we call it. It really drives everything we do. It's important that we think about each parts of this piece of the puzzle when we're taking care of patients. And it is true, the patient is the center of everything we do. We do say that every day. It's on my signature because we care. We want to be the place where people want to get their care. But patient is the center, but we worry about lots of things, but we want to take care of our healthcare team that takes care of our patients. I'm a nurse. I have a 35-year background of being a nurse, and I was an OB nurse for many years in Grand Rapids. But it's important that I don't take care of patients anymore, but I need to take care of the people that take care of the patients. So that's something that we're always wanting to make sure that in a leadership role that we're making sure things are smooth for them, processes are in place so staff can do the best job that they can and just focus on the patient. Safety is always something that is important to us. We have a culture of safety that anytime there's a concern, every single person on our healthcare team, does not matter your role, needs to be able to say, I have a concern. And then that stops everything so we can see what the concern is, so we can make sure that we're giving safe care not only to our patients, but we want to make sure that our healthcare team is safe as well. And then quality is also important. That's okay. Is also important. We want to make sure that we have safe and quality care for our patients. And then, of course, we look at operational performance. That's always something that we do, but we're a nonprofit. Anything that anything over and above what we do to cover our costs goes back into capital and taking care of our facility and our staff and our equipment. Any questions about any of the services that we provide before I go into the ER update?
I don't see any.
Okay, if something comes up, you just let me know. So ED renovation, as you're aware, we've been renovating our ED. Before COVID, there was a big opportunity for us to look at our current space in the ED, and that was one of our big capital projects and one of the things that we really wanted to improve. For many reasons. Our current ED that was in place had some of the updates dated back to 1968 to that 1970 when we moved in. Now, not all of our things were that outdated, but it had been a long time. It was really since the 90s that we'd done a full renovation. Our community has changed. Things change. It's a very used area. We see about 14,000 to 15,000 patients a year. Not only our local folks, but those that are traveling and get a fish hook in their finger or are out having fun and accidents happen. And so we just recognize it's an area that we see a lot of volume, and we wanted to make sure that it was up to date and where it needed to be. So we started a campaign for that. We were ready to launch that campaign spring of 2020, and then COVID hit. And so we knew, obviously, we needed to pause on that project, so we did. And then last year in the summer, as things were kind of winding down a little bit with one of the phases of COVID, we recognized we still had the need. We still wanted to make sure that that work was done, and it felt like the right time to launch that project. So in 2021, in July or August, we really sat down as a team and said this is a good time for us to revisit, kind of dust off those plans, make sure everything is the way that we thought it should be, and launch. And that it has taken a Herculean event of every single department in the hospital working diligently together. We had 3 meetings today as we're getting ready, but every department in the hospital was represented, was part of that conversation and that work. We met weekly for months until we were ready to go, and then as it got closer, we met sometimes every day, just because it's so much to do. What we decided to do, because we knew we were going to do the renovation, the ED on the first floor of the hospital, it's very difficult, even in a home improvement project, to live in a construction zone. And we just knew that trying to take care of patients in a construction zone was going to be pretty difficult. We researched and visited with folks that did it, and they didn't recommend it. It's kind of unheard of to completely move the area too. Sometimes people will go down from 10 rooms to 5 or whatever as they're putting stark walls up and the dust and the noise. And we just decided for the patient satisfaction, the safety of our team and our patients, we were going to relocate. So we went up to the 3rd floor that had 9 beds upstairs, and we're a 9-bed ED, so we were able to go upstairs to a completely different floor, and so we could completely evacuate the ED. It would move up the timing of the construction. It wasn't going to take as long, but a huge satisfier for patients because they didn't have to listen to all the noise and everything that happens when you're doing construction. So the biggest concern for us is making sure that patients would get up to the 3rd floor in a timely fashion, and we did time studies, we did codes, we did drills. We changed the wayfinding. If you've been in the hospital, we have red arrows that lead to the elevators if you're able to get up there by yourself. If not, we employed extra folks to come down and transport you, because the most important thing was making sure patients got up to that 3rd floor. Once we got up there, we knew it was going to be fine, and it's gone really well. I think the planning that the staff did and the leaders did to get that process lined up again in a way that was just streamlined for the patient was super important. So glad we did that. We did start in last spring, so in March. We got lucky. We had about an hour and a half with no patients. We looked at days of the week that had the less census, the time of the day. So 6 o'clock on a very windy Tuesday, we were able to move everything upstairs, the last of everything upstairs, because we double stacked everything, and it's gone really well. We're very thankful that it has gone as well as it has, and now that we are getting ready, we're getting ready to move downstairs. So improvements, I don't know if you all, there are many improvements that were part of the plan, and the reason as the why we wanted to make sure we did this work. Behavioral health patients, unfortunately, we have seen more of that patient where they need to be kept safe from themselves or safe from others, and so, or be a safety to others. So we improved the number of our behavioral health rooms by up to 3. We have a couple already. We added 1, and if for some reason a patient that is needing that safety for themselves needs to be in a room, we have a 1-to-1 where we call it, where they're never unattended by a staff member. But we wanted to increase the number of safe rooms. We had 1 semi-private room. That's not fun. When you're in the ER, you don't want to have a roommate. That's just not what we wanted. The only room that has 2 beds in it is our trauma bay, and that's standard. I mean, because you always have to be prepared for a trauma, and then what if you have another trauma? You need to have all the hands on deck in that room, but that is the only semi-private room in the department now. Mechanical air, that's for vents and things. We did have the ability to have that in tubes, but now it's built into the air. That wasn't something we did back in the 70s when we built it originally, so we have that. Improved isolation rooms. COVID taught us that we need to have more rooms that have negative pressure, so any infection doesn't go back out into the room. It's kind of a technical thing, but we found that we needed that. A decontamination area right side of our EMS is wonderful, so if somebody's been exposed to a chemical or something that's dangerous, they can get decontaminated right outside of the department, and then they can come in, and it keeps patients safe, keeps staff safe. So we're very excited that we were able to add that. That was kind of in and out, but now it's back in, and it's almost done. Other improvements, fire suppression, that's important. That's completely up to code. Heating and cooling, increased safety measures. We did have a few extra entries to the department that we wanted to narrow down, and inpatient flow through the department. So it just seems to have a nice flow now. Not that it didn't before, but it's improved. So this is a really stripped down emergency department exam room. If you look at it, this is under construction. Pretty bare. One thing that this picture shows is because some of the updates in the department were quite outdated or ready to be updated. A lot of the work happened in the ceilings and behind the walls that won't necessarily show up when you walk through the department, but we know that it's all there. And this is a mock-up of this is what the rooms are going to look like. They're going to be pretty standard, so staff will be able to have everything in the same place in every room. Behind that stretcher is what we call a head wall that has it just really nicely laid up, has all of the gases and everything that we need a little differently aligned than it was before. the little computer on the left that's on a stand, so staff can have that right in the room. We do have them still on wheels. We used to call them cows, now we call them wows, workstation on wheels. So just all of the things that we can do to improve the care that is delivered to the patient. So what's next? We're preparing, as I said, to move back into that space. We did have to move our date a few times. Ordering and everything with the pandemic, there are a lot of things that are really hard to get, which you wouldn't think, like doors. We ordered doors over a year ago, and doors still aren't delivered. So we're probably going to have to move in with the old doors still in place and then do a quick swap out because we don't want to delay it anymore. But there were some things that we looked at September to October. That was our early on date. We moved it to November 16th. Well, we thought, well, that's a silly day. Everybody's going to be hunting. So we decided not to do that. And plus, we had a few more delays. So our date right now is December 14th, and it looks like that's going to be our hard date. So we're excited about that. In the next couple of weeks, we'll finalize that date, and then we're going to be sending out invitations to lots of folks that would want to come and do a tour. So I am going to offer, we were thinking you all would maybe want to be a part of a tour, so if that's the case, please let us know. And we would love to have you guys come through. We're going to do, December 14th is on a Wednesday. We want to do all of our tours on Monday, so we're planning on doing tours quite a bit during that day. And then it's going to become a clinical space, so we'll be able to do our final clean of everything and get everything ready so we can move back down early on December 14th. That's a lot of words. What questions do you have for me?
I have a question. It's a great hospital. I like our local hospital. I use it when I need a hospital, so thank you for that. I like the fact that you also do a survey once someone has been there. If you get surveys that aren't positive, how do you deal with that stuff? Do you actually follow up on that stuff,
Yep.
or just kind of go into a black hole?
Well, one thing is we don't always get patient information associated with that. It is generic, so it wouldn't have your name associated unless you included that. But I can tell you, we have something called Press Gini, which is our patient satisfaction hub. It's a national organization. We've been part of them for years. We not only get scores on all of those questions that you ask based on your area, we get scores on all of those. We get a full file every month, and then we get a detailed comment section. And I always like to look at the scores, but to me the comments are really important because that's the voice of the patient. And so we go through and we look at that and we theme them. I mean, and then we'll say, you know, we won't know necessarily if you had a bad experience unless you include your name. But we will know that, boy, there were 4 patients this month that had a horrible time with X, and we want to really
And do you
follow
deal
up.
with X, or do you just, I mean, you actually go bring X in the office and sit down and say,
Every manager gets their, every month, they get that report, and every month, not only do the managers look at it, leaders look at it, managers share that with their staff. Many of them will post that up in the break rooms,
Okay.
and they'll talk about them at not only daily huddles, but if there's some big theme that they find. But it's important. I mean, that's how we know how we're doing.
yeah, I appreciate that. I just was curious
Yep.
how that,
Well, and I just had my labs drawn last week, and I got a questionnaire on my phone, and I filled it out, and there are always areas for comments, and if people are doing a great job and I remember their name, which I should because I work with them, I always put a comment in there. But it's important work, and we do take it very seriously. We talk about it at every senior leadership meeting. We talk about patient satisfaction, so we want folks to be happy, and if they're not, we need to know why so we can make improvements.
perfect.
But thank you for bringing that up.
What's the plan for the third floor, the old OB?
That's such a great question. I lay awake thinking about that space at night. I mean, we've had a little opportunity now. That's where ER is currently. There are so many opportunities for that space. I think of many things. I think of behavioral health. There's a huge need for that in our area and our system. So we don't have any final plans for that area, but if you have any recommendations, you let us know because we are working on what that can look like. Right across from that is surgery, and surgery is increasing in volume. So there's also talk about maybe expanding into that space if we need it because it's right there. And there are times that we not run out of rooms, so we have to really balance the rooms that we have based on the surgeries of the day.
So before you did the renovations, was it just empty? Because I went up there, it looked just like OB.
Yep, it is. It looks just like it was. But we use that space for different things. We used it for drills, for education. We used it for other things, services for our staff, but not necessarily as a clinical space just yet. So when we figure out what service we want to put up there, then we have to staff it. But it's an opportunity for sure.
Are you having any issues with staffing?
every healthcare system in the planet, I think, is having issues with staffing. We're actually doing pretty well right now. We're really excited about that. We're also working with the West Shore Community College because a lot of our employees went to school there if they're nursing. But through the pandemic, everybody struggled, and Manistee is no exception. What we needed to do is if folks decided not to come back, because healthcare has always been challenging, but it's even more challenging during a pandemic. I've never seen anything like it in my career, and most people hadn't. So we had to use agency staff, and that is something that every hospital in Munson needed to use, every hospital in the state had to use. So it's expensive labor, it's a temporary fix for a long-term situation. Our staffing right now, I think we have 2 agency within the entire hospital, which is great, and their contracts are winning, and we're getting interest for folks that want to come back to work, so that's really interesting. Recruiting takes on a whole different meaning, so does retention. Both are super important. So it's something that we talk about every day. We want to make sure that we're on the right path, but we're getting right down to where we need to be. But that'll always be something we have to worry about in healthcare is staffing.
Do you recall if you have any numbers at the height of the pandemic when you had the most amount of extra help that you had to contract for outside the hospital staff?
I think between all of the departments, we probably had at least 10.
Okay.
And that's a pretty high percentage for us. I mean, some are higher than that. Some hospitals were staffing entire floors, or they were shutting down services, and that's something we wanted to keep up because the volumes were up during the pandemic too, and then people were sick or they stayed longer. So instead of staying 2 or 3 days, people were staying 5 to 10 days. And so you have to make sure you have the staff for that. So it's been an interesting challenge, but we've gotten through it together.
Well, it's a good number for us to have at least a ballpark on when we start talking about hotel space or what do we need here.
Yep.
So that's why I'm asking that.
Well, and that's a great, housing is something that we think about too, because there were some assignments, some of these agencies that would come from all over the country. They didn't necessarily all live in Michigan. And then have temporary housing was challenging. Permanent housing is another thing that we think about because we want to have that for those, young staff that are graduating and they want to come here and live in beautiful Manistee and have a place where they can have that, that beginning house. So that's stuff that we think about too. But it was a challenge and will continue to be. But we meet every week to talk about it formally, and then we talk about it every day. We're staffing and how are we doing?
Are they usually staying a month or 2 or 3?
Usually an agency assignment is 13 weeks.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank
And one thing that we've developed within the Munson system is not only agency, which we're trying to get away from because it's super pricey and it's very temporary. So it's a quick fix, but it's not a long-term fix. But we've developed internal pool folks, or internal flex we call them, where they are flexible to go to different hospitals and they like to do that kind of work. So some people like to be in the same place all the time and some don't. There's a little bit of financial pickup to be a flex team member, but we're really seeing nice conversion to that, so that's helping too. So it's really, we have to be adaptable when you're in healthcare, in any industry, but especially healthcare. And so we really have to think about what are ways that we can attract talent that want to stay, and maybe it's not full-time in one place, but maybe it's having the ability to go to several places. So we're working on all of that every day.
Okay. Well, thank you.
It's a hot one, you bet.
Has the hospital thought about building any housing for these people coming and going?
We've talked about housing options, I will say that, so it's still something for consideration because right now we're doing okay, but that doesn't mean it's going to stay like that. And we really do want to think about look at the talent that we want to recruit and retain, and they need to have a place to park their hat before they find full-time housing. So it is something that we talk about. No plans have been made to do that, but we have to figure out, not only as Manistee Hospital, but as a system, what can we do? Does it necessarily have to be right here in Manistee, or could it be between here and Cadillac? So folks go between. So housing is something we do talk about.
I talk to a lot of people that want to come in and work, and they just can't find something
Yep.
decent.
Yep.
So, that'd be nice if the hospital would take up, at least for their employees.
Right. And I don't know if other industries have that same struggle, but I know we do in healthcare.
Well, thank you for your presentation. It's really appreciated.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Concerns and comments, citizen comment. This is an opportunity for citizens to comment on municipal services, activities, or areas of city involvement. Citizens in attendance shall be recognized by the mayor for comments limited to 5 minutes. Letters submitted to council will not be publicly read. Please state your name and address.
Vern Johnson, Manistee. FOIA, it's not your information, you can't regard it or withhold it. It's freedom of information, it belongs to the people. It's appalling that they even have to pay you to do your jobs again. So provide that information all day long, running around the halls. I'm sure I know what you're doing. That hospital, last 2 kids, Waddington. Have a good night.
Thank you. To anybody else? Okay, moving on. Officials and staff. Mr. Gamble.
So at Quincy, Cleveland, the contractor started the water line work this week, so that'll be progressing. And then also City Hall will be open this Saturday, 8 to 4, for voter registration and ballot issuing. So, thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Gamble?
I have one. Bill, I came off the highway today and coming around Veterans Road and I ran right into the road was blocked. There was nothing warning us, and all people are just doing U-turns in front of the DPW. Is that a long-term thing or is that just today?
That is part of that Quincy, Cleveland. They're reconnecting the water line there, but I can look at additional signage over there. I drove down there and kind of noticed it hit a dead end from,
Yeah, you
so I'll
come
take a
off,
look at
you
it.
come around, it's like turn left and everybody doing U-turn and go back out to Burger King and come back around the other way, so.
Okay, I'll look into it. Thank you.
That's a pretty big hole they've got in the middle of Washington Street. I went out and looked at it personally today. Is the sewer line down that far? It must be.
Yep, they're connecting right into there. So I'll see how long it's gonna last to make sure we get some more signage out.
Mr. Saylor.
Nothing, Your Honor. Thank you.
City Clerk.
Nothing, Your Honor, thank you.
Chief Glass.
Just to report, no major incidences during Halloween. That's about it.
Thank you. That's good to hear. Fire Chief. Oh, one of your vehicles was out with its lights flashing and talking to kids. That was kind of nice to see coming down our street. Thank you. Let's see. Who wants to go first? Mr. Bachman?
I don't have much. Mick, thank you for your 4 years of service or whatever it's been. I know we're coming up on the election next Tuesday, so we're not sure when you're gonna vacate your seat, if you're gonna be here Wednesday or not, but thank you for your service. And other than that, I'm wishing others well in the election as well, so thank you. That's all I got.
Cindy?
I just have a couple of things on that whole, so I know that Jeff isn't here, Mr. McCool not here?
No, not.
So on Memorial Drive, it's a beautiful drive, looks great, but the signs and all the pylons and all that stuff that they had for blocking that road were still sitting out there, and it's been like 2 months. I wonder if there's a reason for that, or if that can
Yeah,
get
it says
cleared
it's
up.
closed, coming up to it.
Yeah. That would be great to,
Collect those, okay?
yeah, get that cleaned up if they're not, don't need
Actually,
it there.
Memorial Drive, right?
Yeah, Memorial Drive, yeah, right when you go on to Memorial Drive from the highway. And then the last one I have, I've heard this from 2 people that went to the sandwich shop, the new place downtown. And I guess someone from the historic committee came and said to them that they couldn't have a painted hot dog on their window and they had to remove it. And the owner of the shop felt very like, gosh, aren't they trying to get people to get places down here? And, I just spent $600 on candy for Halloween, and, I get told that I can't have my hot dog on my window. It makes me start thinking about, like, is there some coming together with our historic, Victorian things and the businesses downtown, and how can we support them, in their endeavor to do what they're doing. So I just wanted to bring that up. I don't know exactly what needs to be done with that, but I worry sometimes that, you know, people trying to get a place downtown or wanting to have a thriving business downtown, you know, might run into spots where it's hard to follow the Victorian look and the Victorian this and that and whatever. I want to put it out there. I don't know exactly what we can do about it, but I would love to explore that a little bit more.
I did hear from zoning, there were quite a few different types of signs, and that one included, that were just not conforming, so it was just kind of letting people know certain things weren't conforming. But, yeah,
Yeah, I know we just had like the homecoming and they came down there and they painted the windows, whatever their themes were, and that's totally okay, but, you know, I don't know. Did they not have hot dogs in the Victorian time? I don't know. I mean, I wonder if we're getting a little too nitpicky. That's my
Okay.
wondering.
Anybody
That's
else?
all I have.
I know Chloe's not here, but we're doing leaf pickup next week, is that?
yeah. November 7th it's going to commence, and I think he said they'll be kind of condensing piles and, yeah, doing that.
And I know
So-
that there's the alternative parking, but I don't think a lot of people are aware of that, especially when there's no snow. So is there any kind of,
For the last month, we've been putting notes on people's cars who are in violation and push it out on social media, so we're doing everything we can.
okay, so we're warning them before we get, like,
We do it for at least 6-week warning. The guys, the officers have been doing it for weeks now, just to give them that opportunity, education, provide citations, and push it out. Kelly does a great job pushing on social media as well, just so we can notify our residents, even though we don't assume that everyone knows, right? We'll make sure we educate them before we ticket them, so.
Did November 7th seem kind of late to start leaf pickup? I mean, do you normally do it that late?
I know leaves are still falling right now, but yeah, I was questioning that too, but
I mean, we could be in snow by November 15th, and then they quit picking up altogether in snow and start plowing it back up in the yard. I'm just curious if this is the normal start date for that. It seems like it's a week or so late.
and I think he does, I think it's like a 2-week window when they kind of, yeah, and I think with the weather being warmer, it's probably, trees were still holding on to their leaves. A lot of them came down today, but
A lot of them in the street.
Yeah,
They come around
definitely.
More than once, so, yeah, it just seems like they're late getting that running.
yeah, the streets are getting kind of
Once
congested.
it freezes, they just plow them back over. They don't come back, so.
Mr. Kowalski?
Okay. Mr. Gamble, could we purchase some better fences for the snow? I was down at Fifth Avenue Beach today, and a lot of those fences are just broken up. In fact, they were taking some away from the beach, but a lot of those fences need to be replaced.
okay, the snow fencing there?
Yeah. And the second thing was, on Saturday, we're gonna have a picture of that cabinet up at the Sands Park. If anybody's interested in, we're gonna give it to the newspaper and all that, so what we're gonna dedicate to. So,
Great.
11 o'clock a.m. Saturday.
Are you putting a plaque or anything on that gift to say who it's from, or has anybody thought about it?
That's what the picture is gonna be, and we're gonna put a story to it.
Okay, I just thought a plaque would be nice.
There's gonna be a plaque.
Okay. Ms. Sullivan?
I don't have anything.
Mr. Szymanski?
Okay, well, since this is my last meeting, I would like to thank the citizens of Manistee for their vote and trust over the past 4 years. It's been my honor and privilege to serve my hometown on the city council. I hope I have not disappointed you too often. I've tried to do my best as well as do no harm. Ms. Mayor, council members, it's been a pleasure to serve with you, and I wish you all well in the coming years. I would ask that you continue the good fight to incentivize economic development and create opportunities for housing developments of all kinds in our city. The need is great. Lastly, I would like to thank the city management, the staff, and all of our employees for the outstanding job you perform every day. It's not easy being out in the public. From a balanced budget to providing essential services such as fire, police, public works, a few appreciate all the work that it takes to run a city as well as you do. So thank you, and God bless.
Oh, thank you. And we thank you for your service. It's been great working with you for 4 years. I really appreciate it. Okay. I just wanted to share some thoughts that I had on a little bit more serious topic. I did listen to the last Housing Commission meeting, and I heard a couple of disturbing things. Evidently, some members of the Housing Commission don't understand that as well as appointing people to the Housing Commission, this City Council is the appointing authority based on recommendations from a mayor after collecting applications and a vote. It also works in reverse. If you had to remove somebody from the Housing Commission, there wouldn't be an application process, but there would still be a decision by the City Council. Some members of the Housing Commission do not understand that, and it is spelled out in our city charter as well as in their own bylaws. A couple other things that just sounded a little out of whack was that the executive director for the Housing Commission wants to run a full-page ad in the News Advocate based on recommendations he got from a public relations firm. So he wanted all 5 of the commissioners to sign it, and they had a quorum, but they didn't have 5. So there was 2 that said that they would sign it, and 2 that said that they would not sign it. We need to actually stick to what we talked about, I think, in the work session that we had a couple weeks ago, and that is the tenants would like to make their own tenant association, and we've encouraged the executive director to start having meetings between his staff and the tenants. Most of the problems do seem to center around Century Terrace. I was kind of enthused about the Tenants Association, but then I started thinking about it, and I started thinking, you know, my presence isn't necessary to be there. I think I had said at the work session that I would like to be there. Dale Priester also said that he would like to be there. But I think this is an initiative that just the tenants need to figure out. They don't need somebody telling them what they can and can't do, and they don't need a leader. They need to figure out how they're going to lead themselves in order to make things better at Century Terrace, if that is the goal. So that's a thought that I had. Karen Goodman is an excellent speaker, so if you haven't had a chance to listen to the Housing Commission meeting, she said it best. And I think we should all take her advice seriously. We should be building bridges and not throwing bombs. So I heard some language there in the Housing Commission meeting that was disappointing. The word cowardly and cowards was thrown around, and forbidden was thrown around toward the tenants. I think that's really a little bit out of line, in my opinion, to categorize people that way. And lastly, I think it's important that if anybody in this city, even somebody who's living in Harborview or Century Terrace or any of the scattered home sites, feels like talking to one of the commissioners or somebody on city council, they're free to do so. Elected officials, we talk to everybody. It doesn't matter what their address is. So that was my impression of the Housing Commission meeting. Other than that, that's all I have to say, other than I've really enjoyed working with you, Mick.
Thank you.
And happy Halloween. So, all right, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
That wasn't the gavel, that was your voice. Sorry about that.